All right, let's go. Hey guys, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Toye Akinoso. I am the editorial lead here at our God-given mission. And as you probably know by now, at OGGM, our aim is to help young people know and preach the Gospels. And one of the way we do this is we go on a mission trip twice a year. We go to Tenerife, and we just came back from a mission trip a couple weeks or so ago, and I am so excited to kind of have to sit down with one of the people who came on our mission trip. Rebecca, introduce yourself. Let us meet you. Let us know about you, who you are, what you do, or whatever. Hi.
Hello, I'm Rebecca. I'm a government economist. I work in the Department of Health and Social Care. What do I do? I don't know what you want to know.
Someone said you're a singer. A little birdie told me.
Okay, yes. I sing. I lead worship in my church. I'm a youth teacher as well in my church, which is amazing. So exciting to see young Christians grow.
Whereabouts are you based?
London.
Let me not speak before I get in trouble, but it's so nice to meet you. I guess first and foremost, before we just kind of recorded this video, we're just kind of talking about kind of the trip, the impact it had on you, and kind of where you are now a couple of weeks later. But first and foremost, I just wanted to kind of ask you, and just out of curiosity for those who are listening, that you're not obviously part of the team at OGGM, but why did you decide to be like, hey, I want to go on missions with these guys who I've never met before?
So even though I'd never met anyone from OGGM, I kind of knew about OGGM, and I've known about the amazing work you guys do for about 2-ish years now, or in and about that. I would hear about like the retreats you've gone on. Loads of my friends would go on retreats, but I'm quite introverted, so going to Wales for like 5 days with 200 strangers was like a big no. But I followed you guys on Instagram, and followed Mike, and just followed you guys and what you were doing. I thought it was absolutely amazing. When Mike reached out to me about whether I wanted to go on the missions trip, it was at a point in my life where I felt that I was learning so much about God, learning so much about his word, systematic theology, all that good stuff. And it was reflecting in how I worshipped him and how I saw him. It was reflecting in how I lived my life. But it felt as though just evangelism just wasn't happening. I felt like I was teaching people, but I wasn't preaching the gospel to unbelievers. So I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to kind of fill that gap.
Yeah. And here you are a couple of weeks later on your very first mission trip. So I guess first and foremost, how did you find the trip to Tenerife?
It was amazing. It was so good. It's difficult to put into words in like a simple sentence how good it was, but it was life-changing. A lot of the people that I speak to, when I tell them what happened and what my plans are, they're like, wow, it sounds so life-changing. And that's definitely what it was. It was so lovely to go out with OGGM and family of OGGM and get to know everyone, disconnect from life and the world. I think that was so needed, especially since we've been like at home for such a long time. We've all been really connected to our phones. I know I have. So just to disconnect from everything and everyone was really amazing. I learned so much in our Bible studies. So many different amazing people from Tenerife told us their story, and it was encouraging to know that God is doing amazing things in so many different ways, and in ways that I couldn't even think of or dream of. Like, he's doing them. So it was definitely a life-changing and encouraging experience.
And then how did the trip line up with like any kind of expectations you had going into the trip, or were there any like misconceptions you had about going on missions that the trip then kind of showed was quite different, or did it line up with what you expected?
I think it pretty much lined up with what I expected. In all fairness, I think my expectations were pretty low. I just thought, going on a mission trip, go tell people about Jesus, that's it. So I would definitely say it exceeded my expectations. Something that I I wasn't expecting was to see how connected the body of Christ is. So how, like, there's a family that OGGM have in Tenerife that, you know, no OGGM, no Mike, no, like, different people that have come before. So to see that connection, I was like, that's amazing. And to even develop that connection as well, and not want to leave and just forget about Tenerife, but actually want to stay rooted in that Tenerife family. I didn't anticipate that. I never expected that.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. And then what was your kind of highlight, or if you can pick 2 or 3, or maybe just one moment from the trip, just to share with those who maybe weren't too sure what we got up to? What was the one kind of standout thing?
Right. You said 2 or 3, so I'm gonna give 2.
You can do as much as you want. You can do as much as you want.
The first highlight, I've not been told to say this, is we led worship at the church. We led worship at the church. And that was such an amazing experience to just come together and lead worship. And I also led worship in Spanish, which was cool.
You're bilingual now, huh? Okay.
I'm not bilingual. I just have a lot of banks of international songs in my head. That was pretty cool. That was a nice experience to know that we're leading worship, but we can connect with them in that way in a different language was quite cool. Yeah. And one of my highlights that I will forever remember, we went to go and climb a mountain. I don't climb mountains. I'm not even afraid of heights. I'm afraid of falling. And yeah, really kindly helped me up the mountain. And Mike and Toye, one in front, one behind, helped me down the mountain. And it might seem like something that's just so mundane and simple, but to know that, like, I had people that cared about my well-being, cared about my welfare, and didn't just dismiss my fears, but actually, like, walked me through it. That was so amazing. Like, definitely cemented the friendship.
Yeah, I was never worried at some moments that we might lose you halfway down the mountain, but we survived. We're here. I absolutely love them. And yeah, going to the church and serving the local church there was just a huge blessing, and doing life for a couple of days was brilliant. I guess kind of the last few questions I wanted to kind of find out from you is that now obviously we've been back in the UK. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks or so now. I wanted to find out from you, like, what has changed, or how has the mission trip abroad affected kind of you now back at home, settling in, going back to work? Have there been any effects, or is it kind of more or less the same as it was before?
So I think I knew my life was going to change, like, from before we flew back to the UK. Tenerife definitely inspired me to want to do more missionary work and make that a heavy part of my life. I remember thinking, like, hearing all the amazing stories, the amazing things people were doing for God. I was like, how can I go back to 9 to 5 after this? There's no way. Spend 40 hours of a week just at a desk. I just couldn't. I didn't feel comfortable going back to that. So I'm planning to do more missionary work in the future, and kind of phase out the 9 to 5 and phase in full-time missionary work, which is scary but exciting at the same time. I feel like I'm having to trust God in a way that I've never had to before. I've always had my life planned, and this one is like, you can't really plan exactly what you think life is going to look like in this respect. But I think it's also changed my priorities in life. I think before I went to Tenerife, it was definitely like, okay, climb the career ladder. Okay, this is the decade you're going to get married, you're going to buy a house, you're going to have children, and all of these things that are great, but I think they were too high up on my agenda, and they kind of didn't allow me to see what God wanted me to do, or what God had in store for me, or the works that God had prepared for me to walk in. So those things have definitely moved down my priority list. And I think just living an extraordinary life for God is really where my heart is right now. One of the guys in Tenerife told us, think big. No, think bigger. So I've been thinking as big as I can about what God can do in my life. And it's strange because I'm so used to knowing what I want. Like, I've wanted to buy a house since I was like 16. Like, I knew that was the end goal. So for my priorities to be the same for the past like 8 years, and then all of a sudden they're changing, is wild.
Yeah.
I think day-to-day life probably still looks the same, but there's preparation that is being done to put me in a place where in a couple of years my life will not look the same.
That's really amazing, encouraging to hear from that one random trip to Tenerife.
Right.
Your whole world kind of seems upside down. But there's one thing you mentioned there about how now you want to kind of go on to do further mission work. I know you've also applied to go to Africa for 6 to 12 months to do further mission work. And it seems like you just can't get enough of missions. But what would you say to that one person who is maybe watching this video? They've never been on missions before. They're a bit curious. I think missions is one of them things that, as a Christian, you probably should do it at one stage, but it's kind of like a luxury thing that when you have time, you go on missions, or if the opportunity presents itself. Or what about that person who's on the edge? They're like, okay, maybe I'm ready to jump in the pool. What would you tell them? Or how was the trip for you? What did you really get from it that you would encourage someone to say, hey, I think you should go on mission? What would you say to that person?
I would say, like, dip your feet in the water. Try a short-term one. Tenerife was only 6 days, but it changed my life drastically. So if you're thinking you want to go into missions work, don't feel like you have to go and do 5 years in Timbuktu or wherever. Go and do a short-term one. Do a really like a week, 2 weeks, and see what it's like. See how it feels, and go with an open mind. Go with the possibility that the career path you had for yourself might be changing. Every now and again I sit down, I'm like, wow, I'm really like basically ending my career as I know it as a government economist. And I was like, oh, I've really worked hard to get here, and I'm just ending it almost as it started, but ending my career to do God's work and to please him in that area, and do something that I know is fulfilling, is okay. I'm okay with ending it where I am. So be open to your plans kind of changing and shifting. Speak to your friends, speak to people that you trust, that can counsel you, that can give you advice on what to do next. Google different charities that you can get involved with. But I would also say, something my friend always says is, your home is your first and foremost your mission. Child, wow. First and foremost.
We'll try it again. We'll try it again. We'll cut it out in the edit. Just to say.
Wow. Let's try again. First and foremost, your home is your mission ground.
Yeah. Hey.
There's things that there are needs that need to be met where you are right now. I think that's something that really pushed me to go and do mission work, because I felt like there's need all over the globe that God has equipped his people to meet. Some of us are in really concentrated environments where there's like 20 youth teachers in one church, or 50 choir members, or whatever, and that's great, that's amazing. But there are some places where they don't even have a youth church because they don't have any youth leaders. So there's a need that needs to be met across the globe, but there are needs that need to be met in your local community as well. So if you're sure that you want to do mission work, start your mission where you are. Look for where the needs are met. Don't just think, oh yeah, when I go to like this far country, that's when I'm doing the work of God. No, look for your mission here, and let it just continue to spread out as a result of that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure it's been a huge encouragement to those listening, and thank you guys at home for listening. If you've kind of listened to everything Rebecca said and you're like, you know what, I think missions is for me, well, OGGM is the perfect place for you. We're actually planning a mission trip in January. So if you like to join us on this mission trip, there should be like a Google Doc form either in the description down below or popping up on the screen somewhere. If you fill that form out, someone in the team will be in contact with you, and we would absolutely love you to join us on our next mission trip. But thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you once again, Rebecca, and we'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share this video with your friends, family, or the stranger on the street. How about that? But yeah, take care, guys.